She only wanted to admire the dress, never knowing someone powerful was watching her from across the street. What happened next would turn her quiet, ordinary life into something the whole city would never forget. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The city of Savannah was glowing under the soft golden light of a late afternoon. The streets were busy with laughter, rushing cars, and people dressed in beautiful clothes heading home from work. But among them walked Kate Brooks, a young woman whose world was quiet and small. Kate's life had never been easy. At 24, she worked as a cleaner at Sunny Cafe, a small coffee shop that smelled of roasted beans and dreams she couldn't afford. Her pay barely covered rent for her tiny one-room apartment at the edge of town. Yet, every evening after her shift, she would take the long way home, just to walk past Lorenzo's boutique, the most elegant fashion store in the city. Behind a glass window stood a dress, not just any dress, but a piece of heaven stitched into fabric. It was a white gown with soft lace sleeves, gentle sparkles on the chest, and a flowing skirt that seemed to dance even when the air stood still. Every day, Kate stopped there. Her reflection, tired eyes, faded jeans, and a second-hand coat stood beside that elegant dress, creating a painful contrast between who she was and who she dreamed to be. She would smile faintly, press her hand softly against the glass, and whisper, "Someday, maybe someday." She never tried to enter the boutique. She knew the prices there could feed her for months, but that never stopped her from dreaming. That dress became a quiet friend, something she looked forward to seeing after long hours of mopping floors and wiping tables. That particular evening, a light drizzle had just ended. The streets glistened with reflections of lights and cars, and the smell of wet pavement mixed with the sweetness of pastries from nearby shops. Kate stood at her usual spot, holding her old umbrella, her hair slightly damp from the rain. Inside the boutique, mannequins wore luxury, while outside, she wore hope. She didn't know that across the street, in a sleek black car, Michael Reed was watching her. Michael was 32, the CEO of Reed Enterprises, one of the biggest construction companies in Georgia. He had money, power, and influence, but very little peace. His days were filled with meetings, reports, and cold boardrooms where people only smiled if they needed something from him. That evening, he had asked his driver to stop near Lorenzo's boutique while he took a business call. But as he hung up, his eyes caught sight of a young woman standing by the glass window in the rain. At first, he thought she was just another passerby. But as he watched, he noticed the expression on her face. Gentle, longing, almost childlike. Her eyes sparkled not with greed but with wonder. She wasn't staring at that dress because of its price tag or glamour. She was staring at it because it represented everything she hoped for: beauty, grace, and a moment where she could finally feel seen. Michael couldn't look away. She brushed a strand of hair from her face and gave a tiny smile, as if talking to the dress. Her simplicity touched something deep in him, something he thought was gone. He had seen people in designer suits every day, but none of them had looked at life the way this poor girl looked at that dress. "Who is she?" he murmured to himself quietly. His driver looked confused. "Sir?" Michael didn't answer. He kept watching as Kate turned to leave, walking carefully through puddles with her shoes half-soaked, her umbrella slightly tilted. She didn't know that her small moment of admiration had awakened a spark of humanity in a man who thought he had seen everything. When she disappeared into the evening crowd, Michael leaned back in his seat. For the first time in a long while, he felt something unfamiliar, warmth mixed with curiosity. He looked again at the glowing boutique sign and whispered under his breath, "She deserves that dress more than anyone inside that store." That night, as Kate reached her small apartment, she placed her worn-out umbrella by the door and hung her cafe uniform on a chair. Her stomach growled, but she wasn't thinking about food. She stood by her window, watching the rain fall again, and smiled faintly as the image of the dress filled her mind. In another part of the city, in a mansion filled with silence and expensive art, Michael Reed sat in his study, staring at the city lights. The thought of the young woman in the rain refused to leave his mind. He couldn't explain why, but he knew, deep inside, that he would see her again. By morning, he made a quiet decision. Find out who that girl was, he told his assistant, Mr. Parker, over breakfast. Mr. Parker looked surprised. Which girl, sir? The one who stops by Lorenzo's boutique every evening, Michael replied without looking up from his coffee. Be discreet. It didn't take long. By noon, Mr. Parker returned with a name, a workplace, and even a little background. Her name is Kate Brooks, sir. Works at Sunny Cafe. Part-time cleaner. Lives on the east side of town. Michael nodded slowly, tapping his fingers on the table. Thank you. He paused for a moment, then asked softly, Do you believe in destiny, Parker? Mr. Parker smiled faintly. Not until now, sir. That afternoon, while Kate was busy wiping tables at the cafe, she heard someone call her name. Miss Brooks. She looked up and saw a tall man in a neat black suit holding a white envelope. His shoes shined like glass, and his posture spoke of importance. Yes? She asked nervously, clutching her cleaning cloth. The man smiled politely. A message for you, ma'am. She frowned. From who? He asked me to deliver it personally, the man said, and placed the envelope gently on the table before walking out. Kate stood frozen for a moment, her heart thumping. She quickly untied her apron and opened the letter with trembling fingers. Inside was a note written in fine handwriting that read, Meet me at Lorenzo's boutique today by 5 p.m.
Come as you are.
MR. MR, she whispered. Who could that be? For a moment, she thought it might be a joke. Maybe one of the cafe regulars playing a prank. But something about the handwriting felt serious, elegant, and sincere. Her co-worker, Lydia, peeked over her shoulder. Girl, you gonna go? Kate bit her lip. I don't know. It could be a mistake. Or it could be fate, Lydia teased with a wink. You don't get letters like that every day. All day, Kate couldn't focus. Her mind kept returning to the letter. When the clock struck 4, she washed her hands, tied her hair neatly, and slipped into her only decent dress, a soft blue one she had bought from a thrift shop. Her shoes were old, but she cleaned them until they shone. She didn't know who was waiting for her or why, but something in her heart whispered that this meeting would change everything. When she reached Lorenzo's boutique, the golden lights reflected on the glass again, but this time, she wasn't alone. Standing by the entrance was Michael Reed himself, tall, calm, and well-dressed in a gray tailored suit. His presence drew quiet glances from everyone nearby. For a moment, Kate froze. She recognized him from newspapers and TV. You're Mr. Michael Reed? She asked, almost whispering. He smiled softly. Yes, and you must be Kate Brooks. Her heart skipped. How do you know my name? I saw you, he said gently. Last evening. You were standing right there, looking at that dress through the glass. Kate felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. Oh, I didn't mean to cause any trouble. You didn't, Michael interrupted kindly. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten, the beauty of wishing. He turned to the boutique manager, who had been waiting nearby. The white lace gown in the window. Wrap it, please. Kate's eyes widened. No, wait. Sir, you can't do that. It's too much. I can't accept. Michael raised a hand, stopping her words. It's not about the price, Kate. It's about what it means. Her voice trembled. Why would you buy me something so expensive? You don't even know me. He looked at her with quiet sadness. Because I once knew someone who looked at life the same way you look at that dress, with wonder, not envy. That person was my mother. Kate's eyes filled with tears she couldn't hide. She didn't know what to say. Michael continued softly, I saw her in you, Kate. And I couldn't walk away again. The manager came back with a carefully packed box tied with a gold ribbon. Kate hesitated, but Michael gently placed it in her hands. Sometimes, he said quietly, life gives us strangers who remind us of who we used to be. Don't refuse this. Just promise me one thing. She looked up, tears slipping down her cheeks. What promise? Promise me you'll wear it one day, Not because it's beautiful, but because you are. Kate pressed her lips together, speechless. Her hands shook as she nodded. I promise, she whispered. As she walked home that evening holding the dress, her eyes blurred with tears. People passing by might have thought she'd won a lottery, but it wasn't about money. It was about being seen, valued, and remembered by someone who didn't have to care but chose to. That night, as she placed the box gently on her bed, she cried softly, not from sadness, but from a feeling she hadn't known in years. Hope. And somewhere across the city, Michael sat by his window again, staring at the same stars, this time with a quiet smile on his face. He didn't know it yet, but the girl in the rain had just brought warmth back into his cold world. By morning she knew what she needed to do. Say thank you properly. She woke early, pressed her blue thrift shop dress with a warm iron, tied her hair into a neat bun, and placed 4 homemade butter cookies into a small paper bag. It was all she could afford, but it was honest and from her heart. At 10 a.m., she stood at the glass doors of Reed Enterprises, a tall, shining building of steel and quiet power. People in suits moved with fast steps. Security guards spoke into small radios. The floor gleamed like water. Kate swallowed. I don't belong here, she thought. But she held the paper bag tighter and walked to the reception desk. Good morning, she said softly. I'm here to see Mr. Michael Reed. The receptionist, a calm woman with bright eyes, looked up. Do you have an appointment? No, Kate admitted. But I only need 5 minutes. Please. It's important. The receptionist studied her for a moment, then picked up the phone. Mr. Parker? There is a Miss? Kate Brooks, she said. Miss Kate Brooks asking to see Mr. Reed. She listened, nodded, then smiled at Kate. Please have a seat. Kate sat on the edge of a leather chair, hands folded around the little bag. After a minute, a tall man in a navy suit arrived. He had kind lines around his eyes. Miss Brooks? I'm Mr. Parker. This way, please. They took the elevator up, glass walls, a soft hum, the city growing smaller below. Kate watched her reflection in the door and told herself to breathe. Mr. Parker opened a wide black door and stood aside. Sir, Miss Brooks is here. Michael rose from behind a clean wooden desk. Sunlight fell across his face. He wasn't a cold picture from magazines. He looked human, surprised, then quietly pleased. Kate, he said gently. I didn't think I would see you so soon. I brought this, she said, holding out the paper bag with both hands. It's not much, but I made them myself. Michael accepted the bag as if it were fragile crystal. Then it's more than enough. He placed it carefully on the desk. Please sit. She sat. He poured water into a glass and slid it toward her. Small kindness, steady hands. I came to say thank you, she said, meeting his eyes. But not only for the dress. For the way you spoke to me. For the way you saw me. Michael's jaw shifted. He looked away for a second, then back at her. May I show you something? He stood and walked to a shelf. From it he took a small silver music box, the kind with a little key you turn. He set it on the desk between them and wound it once. A soft tune rose into the quiet room, simple and old. This belonged to my mother, he said. Her name was Anna. Kate leaned in. The music was tender, like a memory you can hear. We were poor, Michael continued, voice low but steady. She worked nights at a laundry, days at a grocery. She fixed hems for neighbors when her hands were already too tired to hold a needle. He smiled at something only he could see. Every Saturday, we would walk past a second-hand shop. There was a blue dress in the window. She never tried it on. She just looked at it and said, not today. Maybe next time. Kate's throat tightened. When I got my first good paycheck, he said, I ran to buy that dress. I wanted to surprise her, but the shop was closed for good. The dress was gone. He breathed in slow. 2 months later, so was she. Silence held the room. The music box turned the last notes and fell quiet. I kept building after that, Michael said, eyes glossy but calm. Bigger contracts, taller buildings, louder rooms. But sometimes, When I passed a window and saw a dress, I remembered the way she looked at it, with joy, not envy. And I remembered that I was too late. Kate pressed a hand to her mouth. I'm so sorry. He shook his head. You don't need to be. A small, almost shy smile touched his lips. Last night, when I saw you at the boutique, I saw her softness, her hope. And I felt, for the first time in years, like I could be on time for something that mattered. Kate blinked away tears. You were, she whispered. You were right on time. Michael looked at the paper bag on his desk. May I? Please. He opened it and laughed softly. Butter cookies. They're a bit uneven, Kate said, embarrassed. I used a bottle as a rolling pin. They're perfect. He took a bite, closed his eyes, and nodded. Perfect. A lightness eased into the room. The grief didn't leave, but it sat down and made space for warmth. May I ask you something? Michael said. Yes. Will you wear the dress? Not for a party. Not for a crowd. Just for you. He gestured to the window. Sometimes we wait for big moments, but small moments are the ones that heal us. Kate smiled through tears. I will. Then she added, brave and honest, would you come to the cafe sometime? Not as a CEO. Just as Michael. We make good coffee. And I could bring the music box's seat by the window. He laughed, a sound that surprised even him. I would like that, Kate. A soft knock. Mr. Parker peeked in. Sir, your board is ready in conference 1. Michael glanced at his watch, then back at Kate. 1 more minute. He walked to a frame on the shelf and brought it to her. A photo of a young woman with bright eyes, holding a tiny music box. She was beautiful, Kate said. She would have liked you, he answered. Kate stood. Thank you for telling me. She looked around the room. The neat desk, the tall glass, the careful order, and then back at the man who had let her into his private, tender place. You did not just give me a dress, she said softly. You gave me permission to hope. He nodded once, as if accepting a promise. And you gave me something I forgot how to ask for. What is that? A reason to sit by a cafe window and taste butter cookies without thinking about meetings. They both smiled. At the door, Kate turned. Michael. Yes. If you ever want to talk about her again, I would like to listen. Something in his face opened. A door alight. Then I will, he said. She left the office lighter than she had entered. The elevator hummed. The lobby shone. The city outside moved the way cities do, fast and loud. But inside her, a quiet space had been made for music and memory and new beginnings. As she stepped into the sunlight, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Thank you for the cookies. Friday, 4 p.m. Your cafe window? Michael. Kate pressed the phone to her chest and smiled up at the sky. The dress waited at home. The music waited in his office. And somewhere between them, hope had learned their names. Friday came faster than Kate expected. All week she worked with a lightness that everyone noticed. She still cleaned tables and washed cups, but there was a quiet glow in her eyes. Even Lydia, her coworker, teased, whoever wrote that letter must have sprinkled sunshine in it. Kate only smiled. She didn't tell anyone about Michael's story. Some things were too sacred to be shared. By 3:45 p.m., she had set a table by the cafe window, the very one where sunlight poured through in the afternoon. She placed 2 cups, a plate for cookies, and a small vase with a single white daisy. Then she waited. At 4:03, the doorbell chimed. He came in quietly, Michael Reed, no suit jacket this time, just a white shirt rolled at the sleeves. For a moment, no one recognized him. He looked ordinary, peaceful, alive. Kate rose, smiling nervously. You came. I said I would, he replied, returning her smile. And I brought something. He handed her a small box wrapped in blue paper. Inside was a folded handkerchief embroidered with a little music note. I made it from one of my mother's old scarves, he said. So I could give part of her memory a new home. Kate pressed it to her heart. It's beautiful. They sat. The smell of coffee filled the air. Outside, The streets were warm and bright. Children ran past with laughter in their steps. For the first time, Michael wasn't thinking about numbers or deadlines. He was watching a young woman stir sugar into his cup as if it were an act of art. They talked for hours. About her childhood, about his travels, about dreams that had once felt too far away. When Kate laughed, he realized it was the first real laughter he had heard in years. When she listened, her eyes made him feel that silence could be gentle. As evening fell, customers left one by one. Only they remained. Kate said softly, "Sometimes I still wonder why you chose me. Out of everyone." Michael smiled. "Because you didn't ask for anything. You only looked with hope, not hunger. That's rare." She looked down, shy. "I didn't think anyone noticed." "I did," he said. "And I don't think I was supposed to walk away." He reached into his pocket and placed the tiny silver music box on the table. It was the same one she'd seen in his office. He turned the key once, and the same soft tune filled the empty cafe. The notes floated around them like fragile light. "My mother used to say," he whispered, "when life gives you music, don't just listen, dance." Kate looked up, eyes glistening. "Then maybe we should." Michael stood, held out his hand. She hesitated only a second before taking it. In the middle of the quiet cafe, under a flickering bulb, they danced, slowly, awkwardly at first, then beautifully. No orchestra, no audience, just two people who had learned to feel again. When the music stopped, they stayed close, breathing softly. "Kate," he murmured, "I don't know how to say this the right way, but meeting you, it reminded me how to live." Her voice trembled. "You gave me more than a dress, Michael. You gave me belief that even broken stories can have gentle endings." He brushed away a tear that slid down her cheek. "Then maybe we should write ours together." She blinked. "What do you mean?" He reached into his pocket again, and this time it wasn't a music box. It was a small ring, simple and elegant. Her eyes widened, tears instantly gathering. "I'm not asking for forever today," he said softly. "Just for a chance to walk beside you while forever begins." Kate covered her mouth, her voice breaking. "Michael, say yes to today," he whispered. "We'll figure out tomorrow together." Her tears spilled freely now. She nodded, smiling through them. "Yes, yes to today." He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had waited for her hand all its life. Then he pulled her gently into his arms, and she leaned into him, feeling warmth, safety, and something she had never known before, being truly seen. Outside, the last light of sunset touched the cafe window. People passing by saw a young woman in a simple blue dress and a man holding her close. They looked like an ordinary couple, but to them, it was everything. Later that night, when Kate returned home, she hung the white gown near her window. The lace shimmered in the streetlight. She touched it once, whispering, "Thank you." And in another part of the city, Michael sat by his mother's music box once more. This time, he didn't feel lonely. He could almost hear her voice in the soft tune. "You're finally home, my son." The next morning, the city woke to its usual rush, but for two hearts, the world had changed quietly and forever. A poor girl who once stood in the rain wishing for a dress had found something far richer than fabric or gold, a love that saw her heart first. And the billionaire who had everything but peace had finally found it, in the eyes of a girl who looked through glass and saw hope. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you find this story worth watching. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more beautiful stories. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.